And good morning, Kim, here in our video. We
Hell,
get to see you
I
today.
know. How exciting.
Always nice.
Well, hello, Miss Sunny. Got a few things to go
Hi.
over today.
Yes.
Kind of surprising about this alleged Trump announcing his own arrest.
And when I was researching this story, apparently all of his information is just coming from the media. Like that's his source of information, right? The office hasn't reached out to him, prosecutor's office, nothing like that. He just gets all of his information from media, biased media, which is a great source.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a plan here. It's a little bit bigger.
Okay.
There were other things floating around social media, allegedly from the Orange Man or whoever's playing the part of the Orange Man as well, calling for bank runs, as an example.
Right.
Also calling for, protest. Please come protest. Please come and protest. Can you come protest? Please protest, patriots. Protest, But you're not hearing any kind of case, and all of a sudden they pull Stormy Daniels out of the hat.
Didn't that seem like that was out of left field? I mean, come on. Like, of all the things that they could say that he's done wrong, it's the stripper?
I know. It's like, So could it be that January 6th, whatever that was, wasn't enough, and we're going to now try to stage a nationwide civil unrest over this alleged situation that may or may not happen tomorrow?
Right.
It goes in accordance with everything else that's going on today. Sorry, my mic's falling out of my ear. It goes in accordance with everything else that's happening today. So today is the spring equinox.
Yep.
And it is going to be one like no other. And both the other side, the dark side, and our side are both expecting something different to happen this year than has happened any other year. But let's go back to Trump and then Putin. Now, both of them are members of the Order of the Black Sun.
Right.
Both of them have done some interesting things in their life. They're both worth a lot more money than they say they are. Well, and it's actually Ivanka. No, not Ivanka. Sorry, Ivana. That was worth more money in the Trump organization, as well as Putin. Putin has a lot of wealth under other people's names. Also, could this be a setup to steal what they think each party has? I definitely know for sure, hands down, they're going for a civil war tomorrow, the day after the spring equinox here in the United States. That's for sure. Both of them were appointed to be the savior of planet Earth in the last decade.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting why they would pick those two people. How many people back Putin? How many people, Another little tidbit of information. We all know that China is driving the Ukraine and, well, befriending the Russians. This is becoming more and more apparent right now. And as China's involvement in the Ukraine is actually escalating. China's involvement in the U.S. was escalating for a long time. South Africa, the same thing. They're all expecting something major to happen today. Now, major things that were supposed to happen that didn't actually happen. This weekend, there was a list going around of all these banks that allegedly failed. Now, did the banks allegedly fail at the time it was circulated? The answer to the question is no, they didn't. Yes, governments are broke. That I would agree with. Do central banks actually fail like regular banks? Not according to the old rules, for sure. Next, do we have a banking crash that is going to happen? It does not appear so. Are the banks themselves broke? The answer to the question is yes. Do they all have liquidity in the form of your accounts? Yes, they do. Are those accounts able to be tapped into? No, they are not. So the SVB orchestration, they somehow came up with $15 million per person on the board, but they couldn't come up with more than $1 to actually buy the bank.
Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. There's also rumors going around about the fact that if UBS buys out Credit Suisse, With what money? I have no idea. This $1.5 billion is a joke. They don't have that kind of money either. That they would be given a $100 billion credit line from the Central Bank of Switzerland.
Okay.
Now, what is actually really happening? Let's talk about the real world situation report as it relates to finances. Over the weekend, there were orders that were given out to hack the ACH system. That's the Automated Clearinghouse System. This is what is attached to your PayPal, your Venmo, if you have automated bill pay from your bank account. All of these things go through ACH. In the United States alone, ACH processes around $62 trillion in transactions per year. So you can imagine how much money flows through ACH. Well, their thought process here, albeit extremely flawed, but here's their process that they went through over the weekend. So the generals, who are working together with the Order of the Dragon, decided this was a place they could get some money from. Lots of money. And then, in a double whammy, they could also crash the banks because all that money would have gone missing. Now, how did they plan to hack into the ACH system? The answer to the question is there is a software company called Candle. They have since sold out to IBM, and they are part of IBM's portfolio, but the software still exists within ACH, and they intended to use this software as a backdoor into the ACH system because it was connected. It did some analytics and a few other things. Candle was one of the few producers of mainframe software, if you know what that is. And this is where they were headed. They also went from there, and they planned on siphoning all the money out of ACH come this morning, last night, depending on where you are in the world, because ACH is a global clearinghouse, although they call it CHAPS in England and by a few other names. And they were going to put it into databases also owned by IBM in Miami, Florida, Houston, Texas, and Los Angeles. Now, let's talk about this being a flawed model. If you take money out of the banking system, if you haven't learned this from the last 20 times you've done it over the last few years, it can't go back in without allocation numbers. Once you take it out of the system, it has no allocation numbers. You cannot put it back. Their intentional use for this money was to actually crash the whole world's banking system, like Dr. Evil, and then buy it back with the money in these data centers. No, you're not. That wouldn't have worked even if we didn't stop you, but it would have hurt a lot of people within the ACH community. Now that software no longer exists, those backdoors no longer exist, and everybody lost access. They also had pulled in a computer system, a quantum computer system, their version of quantum, called Element 6 out of Oxford University. Element 6 is in the suite of MIT quantum computers worldwide, which also no longer exists. So congratulations, bang up job, people, on trying to crash the world. So the bottom line here is if the financial system, not the banks going broke, not the governments going broke, actually crashed, it would have been orchestrated by these people. So it's not in danger in any way. There is no problem. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are problems with their institutions. There are no problems with your money. Did they take that money out of SVB? For a very brief period of time, and the money went back. Apparently, my nickname is now FDIC. No, I don't know. But I can tell you honestly, the FDIC did not do that in any way, shape, or form. It was actually us. We also did the same at Signature Bank. Both banks are fine. Why the push on smaller banks? The push on smaller banks is due to the fact that we disconnected Tier 2, Tier 3, and Tier 4 banks from the Tier 1 banks and also from the Federal Reserve. We have also disconnected Tier 1 banks from the Federal Reserve as well. So the Federal Reserve is kind of sitting all by itself like a Lone Ranger, preaching they're going to launch this FedNow system that actually doesn't even exist anymore. There's a reason for this, and we'll get to that in just a minute. People. Okay, so the way that the banking system used to work is the Federal Reserve was at the helm. It was like the star on the Christmas tree, just to reiterate this if you're new. And the tier 1 banks fall just below the star. Those would be the little short branches on the top. And then underneath each tier 1 bank was a series of tier 2 banks, and then a series of tier 3 and a series of tier 4 banks. Now everybody is on the same level. So all tier 1 banks are no different than 2, 3s, and 4s. But what did that do to the tier 1 banks? All of those banks that are its children, this is globally, this is not just in the US, their liquidity, their asset bases, all were on the balance sheets of the tier 1 banks. The tier 1 bank's balance sheet was also reflected at the Federal Reserve when it existed. Now, when all that went separate, now it's every man for himself, every small bank for themselves. Signature Bank was a tier 2 bank underneath the BONY, Bank of New York Mellon. Now, Bank of New York Mellon also had a lot of banks in South Africa as another example. Wonder why we're all expecting there to be I wonder.
Right.
You know, was there an intention to take all of the money? Would ACH have been effective against the South African payment system? So the South African payment system is its own entity. It runs internally in the country, and it also runs on an ACH platform. So was everybody in the know? Were the 10%ers in South Africa in the know? And how much were they paid? Probably in fake super notes as well, to allow for the crash of their own banking system, much to, the dismay of its citizens. Did they care? Absolutely not. Were they sold that they were going to get $1 bazillion from this ACH scam when they pulled all the money into there, and that they were going to own all these banks? Absolutely they did for their part, and the world domination of the Order of the Dragon. Did the American generals participate because they were promised the same? Absolutely, they were promised the same. So there are bazillions of dollars that are going nowhere. Now, Trump bucks. I'm so tired of hearing about this person. Can someone please just tell the truth? The attorneys are actually considering it, just walking away totally, because they're like, this is a joke. Stormy Daniels, really? I mean, this is a joke and a half, all to incite patriots to start a civil war in the country. They are overestimating the amount of support that still exists for this man. You have some people on YouTube that are all getting information from people from Umbrella Military Corporation, some operatives, possibly the CIA, and they're feeding it to the patriot community. And the patriot community is eating it up because they can't wait till this guy comes back, because for some reason they think he's great, the inventor of Operation Warp Speed. And I remember everybody losing their jobs during his administration. I will repeat myself. The reality of the situation does not look like anything about the fantasy he's painting. So the operative that's playing the role of Trump is now running around saying he's going to drain the swamp. Haven't we heard that before? I didn't see any draining of anything. We're still dealing with these crazy people over there. And now, if he gets a second term, he just didn't have enough time in 4 years. He needed more time to drain the swamp. Perhaps the sump pump was broken. I'm not sure what the problem is here, but it didn't get drained. The people are still there. Pelosi was still standing there until recently, and everybody's still participating in this mess over in D.C. Yep. So there was a push this weekend for Bank of America to see if they could put Trump bucks and Trump Reserve Bank cards back on their balance sheet, because they are also broke. So the banks themselves are the ones that are broke. You are fine. Now, there was an emergency meeting. We talked about the emergency meeting that took place. About 140 some odd senators attended last week, and they were in very heated discussions about using the fund there's a fund allegedly out there. Wonder where it is. That would consider bailing out banks. That was their talk. So we did get calls. I told you from some of the senators' offices. I'll leave it at that right now because I don't want to mess anything up if this is a possibility. There was also a lot of chatter over the weekend about the possibility of Janet Yellen losing her job. Now, just to reiterate, Janet Yellen is firmly up the wrong side of the Order of the Dragon. She will do whatever they say. She used to be with the Fed. The Fed is obviously with the Order of the Dragon. Powell's no different. All expecting something special today. But back to Miss Yellen. So here's the conditions that we set forth. Number one, we talked about nationalizing the tier 1 institutions in this country. There's nothing wrong with the tier 2s, 3s, and 4s. Nothing. As long as the Federal Reserve's posse doesn't come storming into the bank and stealing all their money.
Yeah.
Again, but it will go right back anyway, so they won't achieve anything other than the fact that they can possibly try to force the sale of the bank. But this is where the nationalization actually protects the banking institutions. So both sides of the aisle are now discussing nationalization under the following conditions. Number one, we would actually insert our own people on the boards of all of those institutions. Number two, obviously they would be delisted from the stock market as a part of nationalization. Therefore, there would be no investor benefit from the institutions any further. Number three, it would take us 6 months to a year to clean up the mess and go back to an asset-based trading system. And last but certainly not least, they would have to get rid of Janet Yellen. If they don't get rid of Janet Yellen from the Treasury Department or Department of Treasury officially, because the Federal Reserve is irrelevant at this point, if they don't get rid of her, then we run a serious risk. You know, the Order of the Dragon, so to speak, wants to bankrupt everything and buy it back for pennies on the dollar, and they've been successful in doing so twice now. But those banks are not any more they aren't wealthier than the US-based banks. You know, your Wells Fargo, your Bank of America, your Bank of New York Mellon, your JP Morgan Chase. These are all your tier 1 banks in the United States. So nationalization would actually protect the banks from foreign ownership or from ownership, period, from anyone else other than here in the United States. We would also stipulate that the banks must be owned by American citizens if they are going to be sold, and they would need to remain private for a period of 99 years. You could not take the banks public again. Fair enough? You know, this will give the people, our own people that go in there, meaning, people that are from mutually agreeable people that may work for or have had worked for governments. They could be contractors or whatnot. And these people are very well versed in working in these banking institutions and have been in there for a long time. Eventually, once all the banks are cleaned up, these could be your potential new owners. They would get paid handsomely for helping the banks. Sorry, excuse me. Dry throat, heat. So there's a good possibility we could actually turn around the banking system of the United States by doing this, if Congress agrees. They've been tossing around the idea all weekend long, still discussing it. Something didn't happen at noon Eastern Standard Time today, they will probably be seriously considering it. Now, what was supposed to happen at noon Eastern Standard Time today? Well, today is the spring equinox, where our non-friends, our enemies here, the cabal, were expecting Satan to return. Oh, yes, this is really happening. It's happening.
They give him so much credit. They really do. It's like this, I don't know. They think he can't die.
Quote unquote. The Dark Overlord would not forsake us on this special day. We have done his work gladly. He will surely return to us the Omega system, and then our power will be restored.
Unless he's back with Source.
Yeah.
Dot, dot, dot.
Unless we're glad you called, but he's not home.
He's not here anymore, guys.
So they have been waiting for noon Eastern Standard Time today, which, as of the time of this recording, has passed. And they have been going to all these different locations, checking for signals. Is there a signal coming from Orion? Is there a signal coming from, is it, and looking like Omega's going to reinstall? Let's go to a couple of the portal locations. Let's head to the big Mac Daddy location in Tel Aviv and see if something happens there. They're going everywhere looking for any sign that this is going to happen. And they've been doing it all morning. Unfortunately, no sign to be found. And now they're all running around like this, saying bad words. And blaming me. Why me? I don't know. I mean, I couldn't achieve that task. That's something that, could only come from Source itself. That's a God thing. That's not a Kim thing. But now everybody that was expecting this big wealth of money and the return and stabilization of the Federal Reserve and bazillions of dollars were going to come flying from Powell's mouth, and none of it happened. I'm sad to say. Yeah. Maybe they should try nationalization. That could work.
Yeah.
How much longer can they actually kick the can? How much longer can they wait for the Federal Reserve to do something? The answer to the question is, well, that's their choice. We the people will be fine. We've got ATM machines. We can do all kinds of things for accessing our money. We don't need any, outside help anymore. And we're doing fine. Another thing that happened starting today as well is we are getting huge bursts of light energy.
Nice.
So I know, because the transition that was supposed to happen on this day for eons to create balance is actually happening, but this time it's permanent.
Nice.
So you're going to start to feel a whole lot of good energy, good vibes for the next 3 days. This also is clearing out a lot of the remaining dark essence. There was a little bit of a fight that has taken place all day yesterday and today, because there were some, I don't know what you want to call them, time-released boxes, so to speak. And the time to release them would have been on the equinox before the harvest date, which was supposed to be the beginning of April of this year. Now, what they didn't know, the Dark Overlord waiting people over there in the Order of the Dragon, what they didn't realize is that they didn't care if they wiped them all out too. There was no place for them to go. They would have all gone with us.
Oh, God.
So it was kind of like, if something has full charge or full power, and it could have achieved a task, but because of all the work that's been done in the last year or so, now it's just kind of like it was like it gave up just a little, and and then we cleaned that up and then went on to the next one and the next one and the next one until there were no more left, this morning that could go off. So did they recognize something was happening? No. Did they try to do a little more hacking today? Yes. Did they get anywhere? No. Did the Dark Overlord come? No. Did Satan rise from Israel? No. And we have a bunch of disappointed elite people. But what they will start to see is the exact opposite of what they expected to happen, happening today for the first time in thousands of years.
Wow.
So we are at a very pivotal point. It's excellent for us. There's no going back. And this is the day where there is half light and half dark. It's allegedly equal and even. 12 hours of light and 12 hours of darkness. So, yep. And it's considered New Year's Day by the others, who are also celebrating like crazy right now. We made it. We made it. Yay.
New year, new year.
Well, and we made it because now we're never going to have that
The dark.
come back.
Yeah.
You know, we've cleared out just about all there was to clear out. Systems are clear. Are they going to continue to go crazy and try to see if anybody got anything in banking, or, you know, Omega's coming back, or Kronos, or anything? Probably for the rest of the day, honestly. But I wish them well.
Well, that explains, Kim, why yesterday I was having a completely off day, not really enjoying life at all. And I'm like, what is going on? Because I'm not usually like impacted, at least I don't notice a lot, you know, when we have these like chains and, you know, changes in frequency and stuff. I'm usually pretty resilient, but yesterday I was just off. And I'm like, what is going on? But today I feel a lot better. So now I know why I was feeling that way.
Well, you know, they use a lot of superconducting quantum devices and those types of things. They go to special sites in the world. They were using, for example, not actually dark essence, but artificial dark essence in the Andes Mountains in Chile. The space station there yesterday was one of the locations they were at. And this will affect you. It's negative frequencies. You know, they've done a lot of different things that have put out some pretty bad vibes. I mean, I was probably 14 hours yesterday of just doing this, place after place, people after people, the ACH, clearing all that up. This morning, they had tried to use SIPs, or Special International Payment Systems. SIPs for short. It's not SIPs as in China's CIPS. It's actually SIPS. It's a European payment system. Thought maybe they could steal some money out of that. No, now it's Kim's SIPS system. Thank you for reminding me about that one. I got IBAN, but I didn't get that one. So everything is all good there. Yeah. And all is right with the world for us. We are moving closer and closer to restoration every day. So yeah, we are restoring the planet. We've already been restoring the planet.
Right.
This is just the step that everybody's waiting for.
Yep. Yep.
So, yeah, we are in the clear. The exact time of the equinox is this afternoon at 3:46, I think it is, p.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Okay.
5:46 Eastern Standard Time, and then wherever you are in the world accordingly. So get ready for our love from our Creator. Pretty excited.
And then you said that should last, like, how long should we be feeling that for, Kim? A couple days?
It's only going to get stronger from there, but you know, the first rounds of it will last till about the 23rd.
Okay.
About 3 days after, the actual equinox. So the equinox is no longer an evil day, guys.
So
for the
does that
first
mean,
time,
all the equinoxes moving forward are going to be bursts of light and stuff to look forward to?
yeah, and solstices.
Solstices, yep. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
they belong to the light now.
Good.
So no more darkness spewed all over us during this time, pagan rituals and black magic and all the things that used to happen on the equinox, because it just won't work and it just won't help them.
Right. Gotcha.
So
That's good news.
I know. And that is your World Situation Report for Monday. I got it right day. Okay.
Thank you, Kim. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Sunny.
That wraps up our news update for